Hey YouTube fans, Murray Carter here again from Carter Cutlery. This is going to be part 9 of question and answers, and we'll then film part 10, and then we're going to wrap it up for 2016, and we'll catch you back 2017 with a fresh set of questions. Okay, question number 1. My question is, what is the real reason for using carbon steel? Is carbon steel really sharper? That would be as opposed to stainless steel. We've got other questions there about stainless steel as well. Generally speaking, carbon steel, very available, forges easily, very responsive to low temperature forging and cold forging, and then water quenching and tempering. Carbon steel, generally speaking, if you can clean it or purify it through the forging process, will result in very fine grained structure in the steel, very easy to sharpen. It will hold a really sharp edge for a long time and yet be easy to sharpen. That's kind of the magical element or qualities that you're looking for in a high performance blade. The stainless steel, generally speaking, you just can't get the grain as small as you can in carbon steel using the same process. I'm sure there are very elaborate processes with very extremes in temperature, sub-zero quenches and so on, where you can do some wonderful things in stainless steel, but it's not easily achieved, and it becomes price prohibitive for both the bladesmith and for the end consumer. And generally speaking, in terms of just overall ease and delight in use, the stainless steel just doesn't quite rank up there with the carbon steel. Another thing too, a big problem about stainless steel, and many people overlook this, is stainless steel looks shiny and new 5 years after you bought it, which isn't a good thing from the perspective that the blade doesn't call out to you for a little bit of love and care. A carbon steel blade, boy, when it's neglected, it will let you know. It's going to get rusty, it's going to get patina, and those are signs that probably it also could use a sharpening. But if a stainless steel blade still looks shiny in the drawer 5 years after you bought it, you don't get those visual cues to go get some stones and to sharpen up and give it some tender loving care. So usually that's a big reason why the stainless steel knives are often dull. Another thing too is that people get lulled into thinking the stainless steel knives are practically indestructible, and they go in the dishwasher or they get left in the kitchen sink and so on. And what happens actually is often rust or oxidization will start in this little pinhole size area near the cutting edge or anywhere on the blade really, and it'll actually eat its way all the way through over to the other side, and then when you sharpen the blade, it leaves divots and nicks in the edge, because you've basically got these wormholes of rust that go all the way through, and you never see it happening unless you're really, really attentive to what's going on with your stainless steel. So for that reason, carbon steel, for all those reasons, carbon steel tends to be a better option for the cutting edge of a blade. Now, if you were a person who was concerned about self-defense and you purchased a really high quality blade, and you had it professionally sharpened, or you sharpened it yourself, even better, to a razor sharp edge, and then you left it in your purse or handbag or pocket for years on end without use, keeping it there for that one time that you might need it, stainless steel will actually preserve its edge longer, because a carbon steel blade, unless you're very meticulous about constantly oiling the edge, it actually can oxidize and rust microscopically just from being exposed to the elements. And a stainless steel blade is not as apt to do that. So in this rare, odd comparison, stainless steel is superior to carbon steel. That being said, if you are ever going to really stake your life on a folding knife or a fixed blade knife, you should be using it more than that one time that you think you're going to need it for self-defense. Because if the first time you're reaching for it is when you need it as a matter of life and death, you wouldn't have developed the muscle memory or the familiarity with that tool to use it effectively. So better to get a carbon steel blade, use it on everything, learn to sharpen it, learn to maintain it. Every time you pick it up, you'll intuitively know the condition of that knife because you remember what you cut with it the day before. What belt sander would you recommend a new bladesmith? I think it's hard to beat any of the 2-inch by 72-inch belt sanders. Bader makes them, Baldor makes them, Hardcore makes them. There's a lot of smaller companies that custom make them. If you're real savvy, you can get the parts and get a blueprints to a plan and buy a motor and some other pieces, and you actually assemble one yourself. But the commonality is that the 2x72-inch belts are worldwide available, and they're priced very competitively because they're the most common size belt used. And you know, I recommend everybody who comes through my shop as a student or as a more than casual bystander with great interest in what's going on, I say get yourself a 2x72-inch belt sander, adjustable speed, and keep it at home, because there's a multitude of uses for a grinder like that. You got something on your doorknob that doesn't quite fit, it's a little tight or whatever, you can grind it with your grinder. You want to do home projects, you can grind things with your grinder. Just so many uses. It's like one of those things that once you get and start using, you'll wonder how you ever managed life without one. So getting yourself a standard variable speed 2x72-inch belt grinder of a known quality is a great investment, not only for the bladesmith, but for the home hobbyist as well. Okay, I'd like to hear more on smithing stainless steels with carbon center. I always thought stainless steel shouldn't be forged because it cools off too fast. Well, one of our most popular products is our blades forged with a Hitachi white steel #1 center and 410 stainless on the outside. The 410 stainless is nice and soft, it forges nicely. It's a beautiful support mechanism for the Hitachi white steel, and it's wonderfully easy to maintain. It is a little on the soft side, so it scratches easily, but on the other hand, you can never break those blades. It's easy to sharpen when you sharpen the secondary edge, and produces a very beautiful and functional blade. So I've never forged a homogeneous stainless blade, say out of 440C stainless or ATS 34 or any of those commonly available stainless steel, carbon steel blade steels. But I know some smiths in Japan who have done that as well. And one day, maybe for an open house event, I'll tackle that. It'd be a fun project to do. Do you have any recommendations for the beginner? Well, I've actually gone over this, I think, in the earlier parts of this question and answer series, and that is make batches of knives, get those batches of knives into the hands of friends and family, get the feedback from those knives, and then incorporate that feedback and make some improvement and get to a point where you're confident in your blades metallurgically. Other than that, study everything you can, live, breathe, and talk blades, go to blade shows, get the magazines, try to do some original research, and don't mess around with a whole bunch of different steels. Try to find something, you know, get a recommendation from a senior bladesmith on what steel to use and stick with that until you feel you've mastered it, which I would say is easily forging at least 1,000 blades out of it. Okay, what are the best ways to avoid the cracking of water quench steels? You know, I used to tell people, and it would baffle them, I'd say when I forge welded 10 billets of steel in order to make kitchen knives, if all 10 billets of steel were perfectly forge welded, I would feel disappointed. And people would say, well, what do you mean you had 10 perfect billets? Well, no, because I'm trying for threshold forge welding where it'll just barely forge weld perfectly but not be any degree hotter than it needs to be for the perfect forge welds. I want 2 or 3 of my 10 billets to actually show some flaws and some forge welding imperfections. That lets me know that the other 7 that are forged well are forged perfectly and at the lowest possible temperature. If all 10 are perfectly forge welded, it means I was probably a little high when I heated the billets in order to forge weld them, higher than I needed to be, you see. So if you're going to do anything threshold, you need to be threshold. You need some blades to fail and to know that the others that are successful are perfectly successful. And when it comes to water quenching, if you're trying to milk the absolute maximum hardness potential out of the steel of your blades, if you don't crack a blade every now and then that probably means that you're leaving some points of Rockwell hardness on the table because you're being conservative. In order to know where the threshold is in any process, you have to cross it from time to time. So good for you. This guy, if he's getting a quench blade every now and then, at least he knows, he's learning where that threshold is. Can't be afraid to make mistakes in bladesmithing or else your blades will always be substandard. Okay, so that wraps up part 9 of question and answer for this Carter Cutlery video. And stay tuned for part 10. And as always, stay sharp.